250 motorcycles thundered down the street. The ground shook. Windows rattled. Neighbors rushed onto their porches, eyes wide with fear. At the center of it all stood a tiny house. And in the doorway, an 8-year-old girl in a wheelchair watched the army of leather and chrome roll toward her. She should have been terrified. Everyone else was. But Emma Martinez wasn't afraid, because she recognized the man leading them the same Hell's Angel she'd given her last bottle of water to on a scorching afternoon when the rest of the world walked right past him. Now he was back, and he'd brought an army. Subscribe and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far Emma's story travels. The wheelchair hit a crack in the sidewalk, and Emma Martinez nearly lost her grip on the armrests. She steadied herself, took a breath, and kept pushing. 8 years old, 47 pounds. Arms that ached every single day from fighting concrete that refused to cooperate. "Come on," she whispered to herself. "You can do this." The same words she said every afternoon. The same battle she fought every time the school bell rang and the other children rushed past her like she was part of the scenery. Her hands burned against the rubber wheels. The Arizona sun didn't care that she was tired. It didn't care that she'd been navigating these broken sidewalks since kindergarten, learning every crack, every gap, every place where the pavement rose just enough to catch her front wheels and send her lurching forward. "Hey, watch it!" A teenager on a skateboard swerved around her, barely missing the back of her chair. Emma didn't flinch. She'd stopped flinching a long time ago. "Sorry," she called after him, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. The boy didn't look back. Nobody ever looked back. Maria Martinez stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing dishes that were already clean because it gave her hands something to do besides shake. The bills were spread across the table behind her. Electric. Water. The payment plan for Emma's last round of physical therapy, the one they'd had to stop 3 sessions early because the money ran out. $42 short, she muttered. $42. The screen door creaked open. "Mom!" Maria spun around, forcing a smile onto her face before Emma could see the worry. "Hey, baby girl, how was school?" Emma wheeled herself through the narrow doorway, her backpack hanging from the handles of her chair. "Fine." One word. The same word she used every day. Maria knew what fine meant. It meant nobody had talked to her. It meant she'd eaten lunch alone again. It meant the other children had looked through her like she was made of glass. "Just fine." Emma shrugged, parking her chair by the kitchen table. Her eyes swept across the scattered papers, and something flickered in her expression, understanding maybe or resignation. "Mom, are those bills? Don't worry about that." "I'm not worried." But she was. Maria could see it in the way her daughter's small shoulders tensed, the way her fingers gripped the armrests just a little tighter. Emma was 8 years old, and she already understood things no child should have to understand. "Where's Dad?" "Working a double shift. He'll be home late." Again, Maria turned back to the sink, hiding her face. "He's doing his best, mija. We all are." Silence filled the kitchen, the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. Then Emma spoke, her voice small but steady. "Mom, I know the therapy costs a lot. You don't have to pretend." Maria's hand stopped moving in the soapy water. "I heard you and Dad talking last night," Emma continued, "about how Dr. Patterson said I need more sessions, but the insurance won't cover it." "Emma, it's okay. I'm getting stronger on my own. I don't need—" "Stop." Maria turned around, crossing the kitchen in 3 quick steps. She knelt beside her daughter's wheelchair, taking Emma's small hands in her own. "Listen to me. Your father and I were going to figure this out. That's our job. Your job is to be a kid, to dream, to believe that good things are coming. Okay. Emma looked at her mother with eyes too old for her face. Do you believe that, Mom, that good things are coming? The question hit Maria like a punch to the chest. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise her daughter that everything would be okay, that the money would appear, that the other children would stop ignoring her, that the sidewalks would magically smooth themselves out. But Maria Martinez had never lied to her daughter, and she wasn't going to start now. I believe in you, she said finally. I believe that you're the strongest person I know, and I believe that somehow, some way, things are going to change. Emma squeezed her mother's hands. I believe in you too, Mom. For a moment they stayed like that, mother and daughter, holding on to each other in a kitchen filled with bills they couldn't pay and dreams they couldn't afford. Then Emma pulled back, a small smile crossing her face. I'm going to check on my sunflowers before it gets dark. Maria laughed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Those sunflowers. I swear you love them more than you love me. Almost, Emma said, grinning as she wheeled toward the back door. But not quite. The garden wasn't much, just a small patch of dirt behind their trailer where Emma had planted seeds the previous spring. Everyone told her the soil was too rocky, too dry, too stubborn to grow anything worth growing. Emma had planted the seeds anyway. Now 6 sunflowers stood tall against the evening sky, their faces turned toward the last rays of sunshine, like believers at a revival meeting. Hey guys, Emma whispered, rolling her chair as close as she could get. How was your day? The sunflowers didn't answer. They never did. But somehow being here with them made Emma feel less alone. She reached out and touched the nearest stem, feeling the rough texture beneath her fingertips. You know what happened at school today? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just like every other day. The sunflower swayed slightly in the breeze. Sarah Mitchell had her birthday party last weekend. She invited everyone in class, everyone except me. Emma's voice stayed steady, but her eyes glistened. I pretended I didn't know about it, but I saw the pictures on her mom's phone when she came to pick her up. They had a bounce house. Can you imagine a bounce house? She laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. I used to pray that I could walk. Every night I'd close my eyes and ask God to fix my legs, to let me wake up normal. Emma paused, her fingers still resting on the sunflower's stem. I stopped praying for that. You know why? The evening breeze rustled through the garden. Because I realized something. My legs aren't the problem. The problem is that people look at my chair and they stop seeing me. They see the wheels. They see the metal. They see everything except the person sitting in it. Emma pulled her hand back, settling it in her lap. But you guys, you don't care about any of that. You just grow. You just face the sun. You don't waste time worrying about what the other flowers think of you. She smiled, genuine this time. Maybe that's what I need to do. Stop worrying about what everyone thinks. Just keep facing the sun. The screen door banged open behind her. Emma, dinner's ready. Coming, Mom. She took one last look at her sunflowers, their golden heads glowing in the fading light. See you tomorrow, guys. 3 days later, everything changed. It started like any other afternoon. The final bell rang at Ridgewater Elementary and children poured through the doors like water from a broken dam. Emma waited. She always waited. Trying to navigate a wheelchair through a crowd of running children was an invitation for disaster. So she sat by the door watching her classmates flood past her, their voices high with excitement about weekend plans and playdates and birthday parties she would never be invited to. Hey, Emma. She looked up, surprised. Mrs. Chen, her third-grade teacher, stood in the doorway with a stack of papers in her arms. I wanted to give you this. Mrs. Chen handed her a bright yellow flyer. The library is doing a summer reading program. I thought you might be interested. Emma took the paper, scanning the words without really seeing them. Thanks, Mrs. Chen. You're a wonderful reader, Emma. One of the best in class. Don't let anyone tell you different. The kindness in her teacher's voice made Emma's throat tight. I won't. Mrs. Chen smiled, then hurried back inside as another teacher called her name. Emma tucked the flyer into her backpack and began the long process of getting down the wheelchair ramp. The concrete was smoother here than on the sidewalks the school had been required to install proper accessibility features, but once she hit the public pathway, the familiar battle would begin. She was halfway down the ramp when she heard them. Look, it's Wheelchair Girl. Emma's hands froze on her wheels. 3 boys stood at the bottom of the ramp. 4th graders. She recognized them from the playground, Tyler Mason and his friends, the ones who thought they ruled the school because Tyler's dad owned the car dealership on Main Street. Where you going? Wheelchair Girl, got a hot date? The other boys laughed. Emma said nothing. She'd learned that silence was sometimes the safest response. What's the matter? Can't talk either. She gripped her wheels and pushed forward, trying to angle around them. Tyler stepped into her path. I asked you a question. Please move. Please move, he mimicked in a high-pitched voice. What are you going to do if I don't run me over? More laughter. Emma's face burned. Her heart pounded against her ribs like it was trying to escape. My mom's waiting for me. No, she's not. I saw her talking to someone in the parking lot. You've got time to chat. Tyler leaned closer, his breath hot on her face. You know what I think? I think you pretend you can't walk because you like the attention. My dad says people like you just want sympathy. That's not true. Prove it. Stand up. I can't. Stand up. The words hit her like stones. Emma felt tears building behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not cry in front of these boys. She would not give them that satisfaction. Leave me alone. Or what? Tyler grabbed the handles of her wheelchair and yanked, spinning her sideways. Emma's backpack flew off the handles, spilling books and papers across the concrete. Oops, Tyler said, grinning. Looks like you dropped something. The other boys howled with laughter. Emma sat frozen, staring at her scattered belongings, her vision blurring with tears she couldn't stop anymore. Then a voice cut through the noise. Hey! Everyone turned. A woman stood 20 feet away, her phone already raised. I'm recording this. You want me to send it to your parents, or do you want to walk away right now? Tyler's face went pale. His friends were already backing up their laughter, dying in their throats. We were just joking around, Tyler mumbled. Walk away. The boys scattered like roaches in sudden light. The woman approached, lowering her phone. She was young, maybe in her 20s, with kind eyes and a determined set to her jaw. Are you okay, sweetheart? Emma nodded, even though she wasn't. Her hands were shaking so hard she couldn't grip her wheels. Let me help you with these. The woman gathered Emma's scattered books and papers, tucking them carefully back into the backpack. Then she hung it on the wheelchair handles exactly where it belonged. What's your name? Emma Martinez. I'm Jessica. I work at the library. I saw those boys through the window. She crouched down, putting herself at Emma's eye level. Listen to me. What they said, what they did, that's about them, not about you. You understand? Emma nodded again, but the tears were falling now, sliding down her cheeks in hot streams. Those boys are small, Jessica continued. Small minds, small hearts. But you're not small, Emma. Don't you ever let anyone make you believe you are. For a moment, Emma couldn't speak. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Thank you." Jessica smiled. You need a ride home? I can call your mom. No, I'm okay. I can make it. You sure? Emma straightened in her chair, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sure. She pushed forward, leaving the school behind her. Her arms still trembled, and her heart still ached, but something else was happening too. Something that felt like fire building in her chest. She wasn't going to let them win. Not today. Not ever. The next morning, Emma woke before sunrise. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the previous afternoon. Tyler's words. The laughter. The way her books had scattered across the concrete like her dignity exploding in all directions. But also Jessica's voice. Her kindness. The way she'd looked at Emma like she was worth defending. You're not small, Emma repeated the words to herself, testing their weight. I'm not small. She sat up slowly, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. The familiar routine began the careful transfer from bed to wheelchair, the stretch of muscles that never quite worked the way they were supposed to. By the time she reached the kitchen, her mother was already there, coffee cup in hand, shadows under her eyes. You're up early, mija. Couldn't sleep. Maria studied her daughter's face. Something happened at school yesterday. Emma hesitated. She could tell the truth about Tyler, about the boys, about the humiliation that still burned in her memory. But her mother had enough to worry about. Bills to pay, shifts to work, a husband who came home exhausted every night. Nothing important, Emma said. I'm going to go out early today, get some fresh air. Maria's brow furrowed. You want breakfast first? I'll eat when I get back. Emma, I'm fine, Mom, I promise. Before her mother could argue, Emma was out the door wheels, crunching on the gravel driveway. The morning air was cool, a brief reprieve before the Arizona sun began its daily assault. Emma breathed it in, letting the freshness fill her lungs. She didn't have a destination in mind. She just needed to move, to feel her arms working her wheels, turning her body, carrying her forward, even when the world kept trying to push her back. The streets were quiet at this hour. A few early joggers, a man walking his dog, the distant rumble of a truck on the highway. Emma followed the main road out of her neighborhood, passing the gas station, the dollar store, the empty lot where someone had once tried to build a shopping center before the money ran out. She was about half a mile from home when she heard it. A different kind of rumble. Deeper. More guttural. And then she saw him. A man alone on the side of the road, bent over a massive motorcycle. His back was to her, but she could see the leather vest stretched across his broad shoulders, the tattoos covering his arms, the way his boots dug into the asphalt as he strained against the weight of the machine. He was pushing the motorcycle, or trying to. The thing must have weighed 600 pounds, and the man looked like he was ready to collapse. Emma slowed her chair, watching from a distance. A car passed. The driver didn't even glance at the struggling man. Another car, same response. A woman on foot crossed to the other side of the street, her pace quickening as she hurried past. Emma watched it all the way. People avoided him the way they looked anywhere except in his direction, the way they treated him like he was invisible. She knew that feeling. She lived that feeling every single day. Before she could second-guess herself, Emma started pushing toward him. The man didn't notice her at first. He was too focused on the motorcycle, his face red with effort, sweat dripping from his forehead onto the burning pavement. "Excuse me." He spun around, startled. Emma almost flinched. Up close, he was even more intimidating, tall, heavily built, with a beard that hadn't been trimmed in weeks and eyes that looked like they'd seen things she couldn't imagine. But she'd come this far. She wasn't going to run now. "Are you okay, mister?" The man stared at her, at the wheelchair, at the small girl looking up at him with concern instead of fear. "What?" His voice was rough, like gravel scraping against metal. "I asked if you're okay. You look really tired." He blinked as if her words didn't compute. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Emma reached for the water bottle strapped to the side of her chair, the one her mother insisted she carry everywhere during summer. It was half empty from her morning journey, but there was still enough. She held it out to him. "Here, you need this more than I do." The man didn't move. He just stared at the bottle, then at her, then back at the bottle. "Take it," Emma insisted. "Seriously, you look like you're about to pass out." Slowly, like he wasn't sure this was really happening, the man reached out and took the water bottle from her hand. He drank. Not greedily, but steadily, like someone who had learned to appreciate water in places where it wasn't always available. When he lowered the bottle, his eyes found hers again. "Why'd you stop?" Emma shrugged the same way she had when talking to her sunflowers. "Because you needed help, and nobody else was going to do it." The words hung in the morning air between them, simple, honest, devastating. The man's expression shifted. Something cracked behind those hard eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "Kid, do you know who I am?" "No." "You see this vest?" He gestured to the leather on his back, the patches she couldn't read from her angle. "You know what these patches mean?" "Not really." He laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Your parents would probably tell you to stay away from guys like me." Emma considered this. "Maybe. But you're not hurting anyone. You're just stuck." "Stuck," he repeated like he was tasting the word. "Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it." He looked at his motorcycle, then back at her. "Fuel pump died. I've been pushing this thing for almost 2 miles. That's really far. Tell me about it." Emma chewed her lip, thinking. Then she remembered something. "My mom's friend's husband works at a garage, Ray's Auto Shop on Pine Street. Sometimes he helps people for free if they can't pay." The man raised an eyebrow. "Free?" "He helped my neighbor fix her car last year when she couldn't afford it. He said everyone deserves to get where they're going." For a long moment, the man said nothing. He just looked at her, this tiny girl in a wheelchair, offering him water and information and kindness like it was the most natural thing in the world. "What's your name, kid?" "Emma. Emma Martinez." "Emma." He nodded slowly. "I'm Marcus. Most people call me Ghost." "Ghost? That's a weird name." Another laugh, softer this time. "Yeah, I guess it is." Emma pulled out her phone, the cracked one her dad had given her for emergencies. "I can call Ray's if you want. Tell them where you are." Marcus shook his head, a strange expression crossing his face. "You'd do that for someone you don't even know." "You need help," Emma said simply. "That's reason enough." She dialed the number before he could argue, and when a gruff voice answered, she explained the situation with the same calm efficiency she used for everything else in her life. 10 minutes later, she hung up. "He's coming. He said to wait here and not to worry about the money." Marcus stared at her like she'd just performed a miracle. "Emma Martinez," he said slowly. "You might be the strangest kid I've ever met." "Thanks, I think." He laughed again, and this time it sounded almost real. "It was a compliment." Emma smiled, the expression lighting up her whole face. "Then you're welcome." She should have left then. Gone home before her mother started worrying. But something made her stay, maybe the way Marcus was looking at her, like she was the first person in a long time who'd seen him as human. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why do people cross the street when they see you? Is it because of the tattoos?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's part of it." "That's stupid." "Yeah, it is. I get it, though." Emma looked down at her wheelchair. "People look at me different, too. Like I'm broken. Like I'm not really there. The words came out before she could stop them, and suddenly she felt exposed, vulnerable, like she'd just handed this stranger a piece of her heart. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he crouched down, bringing himself to her level, and said something she would never forget. "You're not broken, Emma. Not even close. And anyone who can't see that isn't worth your time." Emma's throat tightened. "You really think so?" "I know so." He straightened up his leather vest, creaking. "You stopped for me when no one else would. That takes guts. That takes heart. That's the opposite of broken." A truck appeared at the end of the road. Ray's tow truck, right on time. Marcus turned to watch it approach, then looked back at Emma. "I owe you one kid. You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone should have done. That's the thing, though. No one else did." His voice dropped heavy with meaning. "No one else ever does." The tow truck pulled up and Ray climbed out, a stocky man with grease-stained hands and a kind smile. "Emma Martinez, your mama know you're out here playing guardian angel." "Hi, Mr. Ray. This is my friend Marcus. His motorcycle broke down." Friend. The word slipped out naturally, and Emma didn't correct it. Marcus raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Ray walked around the Harley, whistling low. "Fuel pump, huh? I can fix that up today if you want. No charge." "No charge. Any friend of the Martinez family is a friend of mine." Ray started hooking up the bike to his truck. "That little girl's got a heart of gold, you know. Reminds me of her grandma. That woman would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it." Marcus looked at Emma with new eyes. "Yeah, I'm starting to see that." Within minutes, the motorcycle was loaded, and Ray was climbing back into his truck. "You need a ride," he called to Marcus. "I'll walk. It's not far. Suit yourself? Bike'll be ready by this afternoon." The truck pulled away, leaving Marcus and Emma alone on the empty street. "I should go," Emma said. "My mom's probably worried." Marcus nodded. "Thanks again, Emma, for everything." "You're welcome, Ghost." She started to wheel away, then stopped, looking back over her shoulder. "Hey, Marcus." "Yeah. People might not stop for you, but that doesn't mean you're not worth stopping for. You know that, right?" The question hung in the air, sharp and unexpected. Marcus didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with something that sounded almost like gratitude. "Yeah, kid, I'm starting to." Emma smiled a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes, and then she was gone, her wheelchair disappearing down the cracked sidewalk like a small ship navigating an endless sea. Marcus watched her go, until she was just a speck in the distance. Then he started walking toward Ray's garage, her words echoing in his head. "Because you needed help, and nobody else was going to do it." He'd been on the road for 15 years. He'd crossed every state in the Southwest. He'd met thousands of people, faced down danger, lived through things that would break most men. But nothing had ever hit him as hard as a little girl in a wheelchair offering him her last bottle of water. Marcus didn't believe in signs. He didn't believe in fate or destiny or any of that stuff. But as he walked beneath the Arizona sun, something shifted in his chest. Something that felt like hope. Marcus couldn't stop thinking about her. 3 days had passed since the little girl in the wheelchair handed him her water bottle, and her words still echoed in his skull, like a song he couldn't shake. "Because you needed help, and nobody else was going to do it." He sat at the bar inside the Iron Horse Tavern, nursing a beer he didn't really want, surrounded by brothers he'd ridden with for over a decade. The room buzzed with conversation, laughter, the crack of pool balls colliding, but Marcus heard none of it. "Ghost. Hey, Ghost." A heavy hand slapped his shoulder. Marcus turned to find Diesel, 6'4", 300 pounds, arms like tree trunks, sliding onto the stool beside him. "You've been staring at that beer for 20 minutes, brother. Something on your mind?" Marcus shook his head. "Nothing." "Bull, I've known you 15 years. You don't brood unless something's eating at you." Marcus took a long drink, buying himself time. Then, without really meaning to, he started talking. "I broke down on Route 12 a few days ago. Fuel pump died. I was pushing the bike for 2 miles in that heat and not a single person stopped. Not one." Diesel snorted. "Sounds about right. People see the vest, they see the ink, they cross the street." "Yeah, but then this kid stopped." "A kid, little girl. 8 years old, maybe, in a wheelchair." Marcus set his beer down, his voice dropping. "She rolled right up to me, Diesel. Didn't flinch, didn't look scared, just asked if I needed water and handed me her bottle. Her last bottle." Diesel's expression shifted from curiosity to something deeper. "No kidding." "Then she pulled out her phone and called some mechanic her family knows. Got my bike towed for free. Wouldn't take no for an answer." "Damn." I asked her why she stopped. You know what she said? Marcus turned to face his brother, his eyes burning with something he couldn't name. "She said because you needed help, and nobody else was going to do it." Diesel was quiet for a long moment. In all their years riding together, Marcus had never seen him speechless. "What's her name?" Diesel finally asked. "Emma. Emma Martinez. She got family, parents. Sounds like they're struggling. She mentioned something about her mom's friend's husband running a garage helping people who can't pay." Marcus paused. "She's in a wheelchair, Diesel. A beat-up old manual chair that looks like it's held together with duct tape. And she's out there helping strangers while the rest of the world walks right past her." Diesel stared at his own beer processing. "What are you thinking, Ghost?" "I don't know yet, but I owe that kid something. Something real." The noise of the bar continued around them, but between the two men a different kind of conversation was happening. The kind that didn't need many words. "You want to bring this to the table?" Diesel asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I do." The next evening, 18 members of the Ridgewater chapter gathered in the back room of the Iron Horse. No prospects, no hang-arounds, just full-patch members seated around a long wooden table, scarred by decades of cigarette burns and carved initials. Marcus stood at the head of the table, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. "I called this meeting because something happened to me last week, something I can't stop thinking about." He told them everything. The breakdown, the heat, the way every single person had avoided him like he was carrying plague, and then the girl, the tiny girl in the wheelchair, who had stopped when no one else would. "Her name is Emma Martinez. She's 8 years old. She's got some kind of condition that put her in that chair, and from what I can tell, her family doesn't have 2 dimes to rub together." He paused, scanning the faces around the table. Some were curious. Some were skeptical. All were listening. "I've been riding for 15 years. I've seen a lot of ugliness in this world, but I've also learned that the people who deserve help the most are usually the ones who get it the least." A voice from the end of the table. Razor, the chapter's sergeant-at-arms. "What are you proposing, Ghost?" "I don't know yet, but I want to find out more about her situation, see what she needs, and if we can help, I think we should." Murmurs rippled through the room. The club had a reputation earned in many ways, but they also had a code. Loyalty, respect, taking care of their own, and sometimes taking care of people who had no one else. "I'll second that," Diesel said, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Any kid who stops for one of us, when the rest of the world looks away, that kid's got more heart than most grown men I know." More nods around the table. The energy in the room was shifting, coalescing into something unified. The chapter president, a grizzled veteran named Hawk, leaned forward. His eyes were sharp, calculating, but not unkind. "Ghost, you've been with this club a long time. You don't bring things to the table unless they matter. So I'll ask you straight, Is this personal, or is this about the principle? Marcus met his president's gaze without flinching. Both. She helped me when she had no reason to. She's a kid who's been dealt a hard hand, and she's still out there looking for ways to help other people. If that's not worth our time, I don't know what is. Hawk nodded slowly. Find out what she needs. Report back. Then we'll decide what to do. Thank you, brother. The meeting adjourned, but the conversation continued in smaller clusters throughout the bar. Word was spreading. The story of the girl in the wheelchair was taking root. Marcus didn't know it yet, but he'd just set something in motion that would grow far beyond anything he could imagine. 2 days later, Marcus found himself parked outside Ridgewater Elementary, feeling more nervous than he had in years. He'd traded his Harley for Diesel's pickup truck, figuring a motorcycle might attract too much attention. Now he sat behind the wheel, watching children pour out of the school doors, searching for one small figure in a wheelchair. He spotted her almost immediately. Emma emerged from the building alone, navigating the wheelchair ramp with practiced efficiency. Her backpack hung from the handles of her chair, and her face wore the same determined expression he remembered from their first meeting. But something was different today. Her shoulders were tighter, her movements more guarded. Marcus watched as she reached the bottom of the ramp and paused, her head turning slightly. That's when he saw them. 3 boys standing near the fence, their eyes locked on Emma like predators sizing up prey. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The tallest boy stepped forward, blocking Emma's path. Marcus couldn't hear what he was saying, but he could see the effect it had. Emma's posture stiffened. Her chin lifted defiant, but her hands gripped her wheels like she was bracing for impact. Another boy grabbed the handles of her wheelchair, spun her sideways. Emma's backpack flew off, scattering books across the concrete. Marcus was out of the truck before he knew what he was doing. But he stopped himself at the edge of the parking lot. If he charged in there, it could make things worse for her. He was a stranger, a Hell's Angel, and parents would ask questions. He pulled out his phone instead, his jaw clenched with barely contained rage. Diesel, I need you to get the guys, now. What's going on? Just get them, and tell them to bring their bikes. The next afternoon, Emma waited by the school fence, trying to convince herself that yesterday had been the worst of it. Tyler and his friends had gotten their laughs. Maybe now they'd leave her alone. She was wrong. They appeared from behind the equipment shed, moving with the confidence of boys who knew no one was watching. Hey, wheelchair girl, miss us? Emma's stomach dropped. Leave me alone, Tyler, or what you gonna roll over my foot? The other boys laughed. Tyler moved closer, his shadow falling across her chair. My dad said people like you are a drain on society, always wanting special treatment, special ramps, special everything. I don't want special treatment, I just want to go home. Then go. Oh, wait. He grabbed her wheel, holding it in place. You can't. Tears burned behind Emma's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not give him the satisfaction. Then she heard it, a sound that started low and distant, but grew rapidly, filling the air with a rumble that seemed to shake the ground itself. Tyler's grip on her wheel loosened. Everyone turned. 6 motorcycles rounded the corner, their chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. They moved in formation, precise and deliberate, like a military convoy. Emma's breath caught in her chest. The bikes pulled to a stop at the edge of the schoolyard, engines idling with a deep, powerful growl. 6 men dismounted in unison, their leather vests bearing patches that made Tyler's face go pale. Emma recognized the man at the front. Marcus. Ghost. He walked toward her without hurrying, his boots striking the pavement with measured steps. The other bikers flanked him, forming a wall of leather and steel. Tyler stumbled backward, his bravado evaporating like water on hot asphalt. I know exactly what you were doing. Marcus's voice was calm, almost gentle, but it carried an edge that made Tyler flinch. "And I'm going to give you one chance to walk away. Don't waste it." The boys ran. They didn't look back. Marcus turned to Emma, his expression softening. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with hers. "You okay, kid?" Emma nodded, but her lips were trembling. "How did you know? I was watching yesterday, saw what those boys did to you." His voice dropped. "I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner." "It's okay. I'm used to it." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Used to it. 8 years old, and she was used to being bullied, used to being alone, used to fighting battles no kid should have to fight. "You shouldn't have to be used to it, Emma. No one should." She looked at him, then at the 5 other men standing behind him like sentinels. "Who are they? My brothers, my family." Marcus gestured to each man in turn. "This is Diesel, Razor, Hawk, Priest, and Tommy." Each man nodded as his name was called, their hard faces softening as they looked at the small girl in the wheelchair. "They wanted to meet you," Marcus continued. "I told them what you did for me, how you stopped when no one else would." Emma's cheeks flushed. "I just gave you some water." "You gave me more than water, kid. You gave me dignity, and that's something I haven't felt in a long time." Diesel stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over both of them. "Miss Emma, I want you to know something. What Ghost said is true. We're a brotherhood. We take care of each other, and we take care of people who take care of us." "I don't need taking care of," Emma said quickly. "I'm fine." "We know you are." Diesel's voice was surprisingly gentle for such a large man. "But everybody needs someone in their corner. Everybody needs to know they're not alone." Emma looked at the 6 men surrounding her, tattooed, leather-clad, intimidating by every measure society used. But when she looked in their eyes, she didn't see danger. She saw something that looked almost like family. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "You don't even know me." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch careful, almost reverent. "Because you're worth knowing, Emma. And because in this world the people who stop for strangers are the people worth fighting for." For the first time in as long as she could remember, Emma didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. That night, Emma told her parents everything. They sat at the kitchen table, her mother's face cycling through shock, fear, and confusion as Emma described the bikers who had come to her rescue. "Hell's Angels." Maria's voice was sharp with worry. "Emma, those men they're not what you think, Mom. You don't know what I think. I know you're scared, but they didn't hurt me. They protected me." Her father, Carlos, had been silent throughout the story. Now he leaned forward, his calloused hands folded on the table. "This man, Marcus, you met him before today." Emma nodded. "A few days ago. His motorcycle broke down and I helped him. That's all." "You helped a Hell's Angel." "I helped a person who needed help, Dad. That's what you and Mom taught me to do." Carlos exchanged a glance with his wife. The worry in Maria's eyes hadn't faded, but something else was there too, a flicker of pride she couldn't quite hide. "Those boys at school," Carlos said slowly. "Tyler and his friends. How long has this been going on?" Emma looked down at her hands. "A while." "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you have enough to worry about. I didn't want to add more." The silence that followed was heavy loaded with all the things this family carried but never spoke about. The bills, the overtime shifts, the therapy sessions they couldn't afford. Maria reached across the table and took Emma's hand. "Mija, you are never a burden. Do you understand me?" "Never." "I know, Mom." "Do you?" Maria's eyes were glistening. "Because sometimes I think you carry things you shouldn't have to carry. You worry about things you shouldn't have to worry about." And that breaks my heart. Emma squeezed her mother's hand. I'm okay, really. And now I have people looking out for me. Bikers, Carlos muttered, shaking his head. My daughter has bikers looking out for her. But despite his words, there was something in his voice that sounded almost like relief. Word traveled fast within the Brotherhood. By the end of the week, every chapter within 200 miles had heard the story of Emma Martinez, the little girl in the wheelchair who had stopped for a Hell's Angel when the rest of the world walked by. The story spread from Ridgewater to Phoenix, from Phoenix to Tucson, from Tucson to Albuquerque. At gas stations and roadside diners, at rallies and poker runs, men in leather vests leaned in close and asked, "You hear about the kid in Arizona, the one who helped Ghost?" And every time the story was told, it grew, not with exaggeration, but with meaning. Each retelling added another layer of significance, another reason why this small act of kindness mattered. She's 8 years old. Spina bifida, can't walk. She stopped for him when no one else would. Gave him her last water. Called a tow truck. Never asked for anything in return. The Brotherhood understood something that the rest of the world often forgot. Kindness wasn't about grand gestures or heroic acts. It was about the small moments when someone chose to see another person's humanity instead of looking away. Emma Martinez had seen Marcus's humanity when everyone else saw only danger. And for men who spent their lives being judged by their appearance, that meant everything. 2 weeks after the schoolyard encounter, Marcus received a call from Hawk. "Ghost, we need to talk." "What's going on?" "I just got off the phone with the chapter president in Albuquerque, and before that Phoenix, and before that Tucson." Hawk paused. "Everyone's heard about your girl." "She's not my girl. She's just a kid who, I know what she is, and so does everyone else." Hawk's voice carried weight. "They want to help Ghost. All of them. They're asking what she needs, what her family needs. They want to do something." Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this is bigger than our chapter now. This is Brotherhood-wide, and we need to figure out what we're going to do about it." Marcus thought about Emma, about her beat-up wheelchair, about her parents working double shifts just to keep the lights on, about the therapy sessions she needed but couldn't afford. "I'll find out what she needs," he said quietly. "And then we'll make it happen." "Good. Keep me posted." The line went dead, but the silence that followed was electric with possibility. Something was building. Something Marcus couldn't fully see yet, but could feel in his bones. The ripples from one small act of kindness were spreading outward, gathering force, preparing to return as a wave. And Emma Martinez had no idea what was coming. Marcus spent the next week doing something he'd never done before in his life. He investigated a family. Not with malice, not with suspicion, but with the careful attention of a man who wanted to help and needed to know how. He talked to Ray at the auto shop. He talked to the cashier at the grocery store, where Maria Martinez worked part-time. He talked to neighbors, to teachers, to anyone who would give him 5 minutes and honest answers. What he learned broke his heart. Carlos Martinez worked 60 hours a week at the copper mine, pulling double shifts so often that his body had started to give out. He'd thrown out his back twice in the past year, missing work both times, watching the bills pile up while he lay in bed, unable to move. Maria cleaned houses across town, sometimes 3 or 4 in a single day, her hands cracked and raw from chemicals and scrubbing. She smiled through exhaustion, never complained, never let Emma see how tired she really was. And Emma's medical needs were staggering. Physical therapy twice a week, except they'd had to cut it to once a month because insurance covered almost nothing. A new wheelchair that she'd outgrown 2 years ago but couldn't afford to replace. medications, doctor's visits, specialists in Phoenix, who charged more for a single consultation than Carlos earned in a week. The Martinez family wasn't just struggling, they were drowning, and they were drowning quietly with dignity, refusing to ask anyone for help. Marcus sat in his apartment that night staring at the notes he'd scribbled on a bar napkin and felt something shift inside him. He'd spent most of his adult life believing that the world owed him nothing, that kindness was weakness, that the only people you could count on were the brothers who rode beside you. But Emma had stopped for him. A stranger. A man the world told her to fear, and now it was time to stop for her. He picked up his phone and called Hawk. "I know what she needs. Tell me." Marcus took a breath. "A new wheelchair. Custom motorized, designed for a growing kid. I talked to a guy who builds them. It's going to cost around $12,000. Hawk whistled low. "That's serious money." "That's not all. She needs physical therapy, twice a week minimum. The closest specialist who takes their insurance is in Phoenix, 90 miles away. They can't afford this gas, let alone the copays." "How much?" "If we're talking a year of therapy, we're looking at another 15 grand. Maybe more." Silence on the line. Marcus could hear Hawk thinking, calculating. "What about the family? They need anything else?" "Everything, brother. They need everything. The dad's working himself to death. The mom's not far behind. They've got bills stacked up like cordwood and they're too proud to ask for help." Another long pause. Then Hawk's voice came back, steady and certain. "Call the other chapters. Tell them what you found. And tell them we're having a gathering." Marcus's pulse quickened. "A gathering. Full brotherhood. Every chapter that wants to participate. We're going to do this right, Ghost. We're going to do this big." The word spread like wildfire. Within 48 hours, Marcus had calls from chapter presidents in Phoenix, Tucson, Albuquerque, Las Vegas, and El Paso. Each one had the same message: count us in. "How many riders?" Marcus asked Diesel after a particularly long night of phone calls. Diesel checked his notes. "So far, 160 confirmed, and more coming in every hour." 160. "Brother, this thing has taken on a life of its own. People are hearing about Emma, and they want to be part of it. They want to show up." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "All because a little girl gave me a bottle of water. All because a little girl saw a human being when everyone else saw a monster." Diesel clapped him on the shoulder. "That's worth riding for Ghost. That's worth everything." The money started coming in before the gathering was even organized. $500 from the Tucson chapter, $800 from Phoenix, $1,200 from a group of independent riders who'd heard the story and wanted to contribute. Hawk set up a fund, carefully tracked every dollar accounted for. The Brotherhood had its share of outlaws, but when it came to helping one of their own, and Emma was one of their own, now there would be no cutting corners, no skimming, no questions about where the money went. By the end of the second week, they'd raised $9,000. By the end of the third week, $18,000. And still it kept coming. "Ghost, you need to see this." Razor burst into the Iron Horse on a Thursday evening, his face flushed with excitement. "Check your phone." Marcus pulled up his messages and froze. A video was making its way through the Brotherhood's informal network, a 3-minute clip someone had edited together, combining photos of Emma with the story Marcus had told at the original chapter meeting. It had been viewed over 2,000 times. "Who made this Tommy's kid, the one who does all that computer stuff?" Razor was grinning. "It's everywhere, brother. People are sharing it, talking about it. I heard there's a chapter in Colorado that wants to send a delegation." Colorado. And Wyoming. And maybe even California. Marcus stared at his phone, watching the video play. There was Emma in one of the photos Diesel had taken from a distance, a small figure in a wheelchair surrounded by sunflowers in her backyard garden. The caption read, "She stopped when no one else would." Something tightened in Marcus's chest. Pride, maybe, or gratitude. Or the overwhelming realization that one small act of kindness had created something he never could have imagined. 3 weeks after the gathering was announced, Marcus knew he had to tell Emma. The secret had grown too big to contain. 230 riders had now confirmed their attendance. The fund had swelled to over $30,000. A custom wheelchair was being built by a specialist in Scottsdale, designed specifically for Emma's measurements and needs. But Emma knew nothing. Her parents knew nothing. They went about their lives. Carlos at the mine, Maria cleaning houses, Emma fighting her daily battles completely unaware of the wave that was building. Marcus found Emma in her usual spot after school, navigating the cracked sidewalk toward home. The bullies had stopped bothering her since the bikers' first visit, but she still traveled alone, still carried herself with that quiet dignity that had drawn him to her in the first place. "Hey, kid." Emma looked up, her face breaking into a smile. "Ghost, I mean Marcus." "Ghost is fine. Mind if I walk with you?" "You don't have your motorcycle. Thought I'd stretch my legs today." They moved together in comfortable silence, Emma's wheels squeaking softly against the pavement, Marcus matching his pace to hers. "How's school?" he asked. "Better. Tyler and his friends don't bother me anymore." "Good. They give you any trouble, you let me know." Emma laughed a real laugh, the kind that made Marcus's heart lift. "I don't think they're going to give me trouble ever again. They run the other way when they see me coming." Smart boys. They rounded the corner toward Emma's neighborhood, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. He'd been rehearsing this conversation for days, trying to find the right words. "Emma, I need to tell you something." She looked up at him, curiosity in her eyes. "What? After you helped me that day with the water and the phone call, I told my brothers about it. About you." "Your biker brothers?" "Yeah. And they told their brothers. And those brothers told others." Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "Emma, your story has traveled a long way. A lot of people have heard about what you did." Emma's brow furrowed. "I didn't do anything special." "That's where you're wrong, kid. What you did was special. It was the kind of thing that reminds people why kindness matters, why stopping for strangers matters." He took a breath. "And those people want to do something for you, to say thank you. Thank you for giving you water, for seeing me when no one else did." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. "What do they want to do?" Marcus smiled. "That's the part I can't tell you yet, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She studied his face with those wise, ancient eyes. 8 years old, and she could read people better than most adults, Marcus knew. "I trust you, Ghost." "Good. Because what's coming? It's going to be big, Emma. It's going to be really big." The night before the gathering, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through the logistics one more time. 250 riders confirmed. The wheelchair finished and transported from Scottsdale. The fund totaling just over $42,000. Enough for the chair for 3 years of physical therapy for medical bills that had been piling up. Everything was in place. Everything was ready. But Marcus was terrified. Not of the event itself. Not of the logistics or the coordination or the sheer scale of what they'd organized. He was terrified of Emma's reaction. What if it was too much? What if she felt overwhelmed, patronized, reduced to a charity case? What if the thing that was meant to lift her up somehow diminished her instead? His phone buzzed. A text from Diesel. "You ready for tomorrow, brother?" Marcus typed back. "No." A moment later, "Me neither, but we're doing it anyway." Despite himself, Marcus smiled. That was the thing about brotherhood, about family. You didn't have to be ready. You just had to show up. The morning of the gathering dawned clear and hot. Marcus arrived at the staging area, a parking lot outside of town, before 7 a.m. Already dozens of motorcycles were lined up in neat rows, their chrome catching the early light. Diesel met him at the entrance. "We've got riders coming in from 6 states. Ghost, 6 states. How many total? Last count, 247. But more keep showing up." Marcus looked out at the sea of leather and steel, the men and women who had traveled hundreds of miles to be part of this moment. "All for a little girl who gave me water. All for a little girl who gave you dignity." Diesel's voice was thick with emotion. "Don't sell her short, brother. What she did matters. That's why we're all here." The hours crawled by as final preparations were made. The wheelchair was loaded onto a flatbed trailer covered with a tarp to keep it hidden until the right moment, and the envelope containing information about the therapy fund was triple-checked, the numbers verified, the letter composed with care. At noon, Hawk called the riders together for a final briefing. "Listen up. We're about to roll into a residential neighborhood. There's going to be families, kids, people who aren't used to seeing this many bikes in one place. We ride slow. We ride respectful. We're not here to intimidate anyone. We're here to honor a little girl and her family." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Ghost is going to lead us in. When we arrive, nobody approaches the family until he gives the signal. This is his show. We're just here to support." Marcus felt the weight of 250 pairs of eyes on him. "Thank you all for being here. What we're about to do, it's going to change that little girl's life. But it's also going to show the world something important. It's going to show them that the people they're afraid of, the people they cross the street to avoid, are capable of incredible kindness." He paused, his voice roughening. "Emma Martinez saw that in me when no one else did. Let's show her that her faith wasn't misplaced." Engines roared to life. 250 motorcycles filled the air with thunder, and the convoy began to move. Emma was in her garden when she first heard the sound. She'd spent the morning with her sunflowers, talking to them the way she always did, telling them about her week, her hopes, her fears. The sun was warm on her face, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then the rumble began. At first she thought it was a truck on the highway, but it grew louder, and louder, and louder still. "Mom!" Emma wheeled toward the back door. "Mom, what's that noise?" Maria appeared in the doorway, dish towel in hand, her face creased with confusion. "I don't know, mija. It sounds like—" She stopped. Her eyes went wide. "Carlos!" she shouted. "Carlos, get out here!" Emma's father emerged from the house, still in his work clothes, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. But that exhaustion vanished when he saw what was coming down their street. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. A river of chrome and leather that stretched as far as they could see. "What the hell?" Carlos breathed. Emma wheeled herself around the side of the house, her heart pounding. She couldn't see the front yard from the garden, but she could hear the roar of engines, the squeal of brakes, the sudden silence as 250 motorcycles cut their engines in unison. "Emma," her mother's voice was shaking. "Emma, come here." She rounded the corner and stopped. The street was filled, completely filled. Motorcycles lined both sides as far as she could see, and standing in front of them were more people than Emma had ever seen in one place. Men and women in leather vests, their faces weathered by road and wind, all of them looking at her. And at the front of the crowd, walking toward her with slow, deliberate steps, was Marcus. Ghost. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. He stopped a few feet away, lowering himself to one knee the way he had that day at the schoolyard. "Hey, kid." "What?" Emma couldn't find words. Her brain couldn't process what her eyes were seeing. "What is all this? Remember when I said people wanted to say thank you?" Emma nodded, mute. "Well," Marcus gestured to the crowd behind him. "They're here." The tears came before Emma could stop them. She'd spent so many years feeling invisible, so many years being overlooked, underestimated, ignored. And now here were hundreds of people who had traveled from across the country just to see her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why?" Marcus's eyes were glistening. "Because you stopped for me, Emma. When everyone else walked by, you stopped. And that mattered. It mattered more than you know." He stood and raised his hand. Behind him, Diesel and two other bikers began removing the tarp from the flatbed trailer. Emma's breath caught in her chest. It was a wheelchair, but not like any wheelchair she'd ever seen. The frame was deep purple, her favorite color. Chrome accents ran along the sides, polished to a mirror shine. It was motorized, powerful, beautiful. "That's—" Emma couldn't finish the sentence. "That's yours," Marcus said. "Custom built, designed to grow with you, so you never have to fight those sidewalks again." Maria let out a sob. Carlos caught her before her knees buckled, his own face wet with tears. "There's more." Marcus turned to another biker who stepped forward with an envelope. "This is for your parents." Carlos took the envelope with trembling hands. He opened it, read the contents, and his face crumpled. "What is it?" Maria whispered. "Therapy," Carlos managed. 3 years of therapy, paid in full. He looked up at Marcus, his voice breaking. How is this possible?" 250 people believed in your daughter," Marcus said simply. "They wanted her to know she's not alone, that she never was." Emma sat in her old wheelchair, surrounded by hundreds of strangers who felt like family and understood something she would carry for the rest of her life. Kindness wasn't about grand gestures. It wasn't about how much you had or what you could give. It was about stopping. Just stopping. Taking a moment to see another person's humanity when the rest of the world looked away. She had stopped for Marcus on a hot Arizona afternoon, and now 250 people had stopped for her. The thunder of engines had faded. The sea of chrome had dispersed back to highways and distant homes, but the echo remained. Emma sat in her new wheelchair, her purple throne as Diesel had called it, running her fingers over the smooth controls. It hummed beneath her, responsive and powerful, waiting to carry her wherever she wanted to go. Her parents sat on the porch steps, still processing everything. The envelope lay open between them, its contents spread out like proof of a miracle. 3 years, Maria kept saying. 3 years of therapy. Carlos stared at the papers. "We can't accept this." "You already did, Dad." Emma rolled her new chair toward her parents. "And you're not giving it back." He looked at her, this tiny girl who had carried herself with such dignity through years of struggle, and something in his expression shifted. "When did you get so wise, mija?" "I learned from you and Mom." Emma smiled. "You taught me that helping people matters. That kindness matters. I just did what you showed me." Maria pulled her daughter into a hug, careful not to jostle the new chair. "We are so proud of you, Emma. So incredibly proud." "I didn't do anything special." "Yes, you did." Carlos knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around both his wife and daughter. "You reminded a lot of people what it means to be human, and they wanted to remind you that you're not forgotten." Emma closed her eyes, feeling her parents' arms around her, feeling the solid frame of her new wheelchair beneath her, feeling the warmth of a summer evening settling over their small home. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Later that night, after her parents had finally gone to sleep, Emma wheeled herself out to her garden. The sunflowers stood tall in the moonlight, their heads bowed now that the sun had set, waiting for morning to lift them again. "Hey guys," Emma whispered. "You'll never believe what happened today." She told them everything. The motorcycles, the wheelchair, the envelope full of promises, the hundreds of strangers who had become something like family. "Marcus said I gave him dignity," she continued, her voice soft. "But I think he gave me something bigger. He gave me proof." The sunflowers swayed gently in the night breeze. Proof that kindness comes back, that stopping for people matters, that even when you feel invisible, someone out there sees you. Emma reached out and touched the nearest stem. "You guys taught me that. You always face the sun no matter what. You don't give up." She sat in her purple wheelchair, surrounded by the flowers she had grown from seeds everyone said would never take root, and made a promise to herself. She would never stop stopping. No matter how many people walked past, no matter how many times the world looked away, she would always be the one who noticed, the one who helped, the one who saw. Because that's what the sunflowers did. And that's what she would do too. The moon rose higher, the night deepened, and somewhere on a highway far away, Marcus rode with his brothers, the wind in his face, and Emma's words echoing in his heart. "Because you needed help, and nobody else was going to do it." He smiled into the darkness. That little girl had no idea what she'd started. 2 months after the gathering, Emma Martinez rolled into Ridgewater Elementary like a different person. Not because the wheelchair had changed who she was, but because she finally understood who she had always been. The purple chair hummed beneath her, responsive to the slightest touch. No more fighting cracked sidewalks. No more wrestling with stubborn wheels. No more arriving at school exhausted before the day even began. "Emma, wait up." She turned to find Sarah Mitchell running toward her, the same Sarah Mitchell, whose birthday party she'd never been invited to. "Hey, Sarah. I love your new wheelchair. It's so cool." Sarah fell into step beside her, matching Emma's pace without being asked. "Where did you get it?" "Some friends gave it to me." "Friends? What kind of friends?" Emma smiled. "The best kind." Word had spread through the school like wildfire. Everyone had heard about the bikers. Everyone had seen the videos that had made their way onto social media, 250 motorcycles filling the streets of their quiet neighborhood. And everyone looked at Emma differently now. Not with pity, not with dismissal, with curiosity, with respect, with something that looked almost like admiration. "Can I sit with you at lunch?" Sarah asked. Emma paused, surprised. "You want to sit with me?" "Yeah, if that's okay." For a moment, Emma didn't know what to say. She'd spent years watching Sarah from across the cafeteria, wondering what it would feel like to be included. "Sure," she said finally. "That would be nice." The cafeteria buzzed with noise when Emma rolled in at noon. She found a spot near the windows, and within minutes, Sarah appeared with her tray. Then another girl. Then another. Before Emma knew it, she was surrounded by classmates who had barely acknowledged her existence 3 months ago. "Is it true that Hell's Angels came to your house? What were they like? Were you scared?" Emma fielded the questions with patience, but her mind kept drifting to Marcus, to Diesel, to the men and women who had traveled across state lines just to show her she mattered. "They're not what you think," she said quietly. "Everyone's afraid of them because of how they look. But they're just people. People who help each other. People who stop for strangers." The table fell silent. Emma could feel the shift in the air the moment when her classmates stopped seeing a story and started seeing a lesson. My dad says bikers are dangerous, one girl ventured. Some people said the same thing about me, Emma replied. Because I'm in a wheelchair, because I'm different. But being different doesn't make you dangerous. It just makes you different. She didn't know if they understood. Maybe they were too young. Maybe the lesson would take years to sink in. But she planted the seed anyway. That's what sunflowers did. Tyler Mason kept his distance. Emma saw him in the hallways sometimes, always with his head down, always moving in the opposite direction when she approached. The boy who had tormented her for years now couldn't meet her eyes. Part of her wanted to confront him, to demand an apology, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused. But another part of her, the part that had handed Marcus a water bottle on a scorching afternoon, understood something deeper. Revenge was easy. Forgiveness was harder. And the hardest thing of all was letting go. Tyler. He froze in the hallway, his back to her. I know you hear me. Slowly he turned. His face was pale, his eyes darting around like he was looking for an escape route. What do you want? His voice cracked. Emma rolled closer, stopping a few feet away. I want to ask you something. I didn't mean I was just, why did you do it? The question hung between them. Tyler's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I'm not going to yell at you, Emma continued. I'm not going to get the bikers to come after you. I just want to understand. Tyler stared at the floor. His shoulders slumped, and when he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because everyone else did. Everyone else what? Made fun of you, talked about you. My friends all said... He stopped swallowing hard. I wanted them to like me, I wanted to fit in, so I did what they did. Emma watched him, this boy who had caused her so much pain, and saw something she recognized. Loneliness. The desperate need to belong. The willingness to hurt others just to feel accepted. Tyler, look at me. He lifted his eyes reluctantly. What you did hurt. A lot. And I'm not going to pretend it didn't. Emma's voice was steady. But I'm not going to carry that hurt forever. It's too heavy. And I've got better things to do with my time. Tyler blinked. You're not mad? I was. I'm not anymore. She paused. Being mean to me didn't make you happy, did it? He shook his head. It never does. Hurting people doesn't fix whatever's broken inside you. It just breaks other people too. Tyler's eyes were wet now. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm really sorry. I know. She turned her wheelchair toward the classroom. And Tyler, find better friends, ones who don't need you to be cruel to like you. She left him standing in the hallway, and she didn't look back. That night, Emma told her parents about the conversation. Maria listened with tears streaming down her face. Carlos sat in silence, his jaw tight with emotion. You forgave him? Maria finally asked. Not exactly. I just decided not to let what he did control me anymore. That's very mature, mija. Emma shrugged. Marcus said something to me once. He said that people who can't see your humanity aren't worth your anger. They're just worth your pity. Carlos leaned forward. This Marcus. He's a good man, isn't he? He's the best man I know, besides you, Dad. Her father's eyes glistened. I never thought I'd say this about a Hell's Angel, but I'm glad you met him. I'm glad he's in your life. Me too. The phone rang, cutting through the moment. Maria answered, her brow furrowing as she listened. Yes, this is the Martinez residence. Who's calling? A pause. Her eyes went wide. I'm sorry, who? She covered the receiver with her hand and looked at Carlos. It's a reporter. From the Phoenix News. Emma's stomach dropped. A reporter. They want to do a story about Emma, about the bikers. About... Maria listened again. They saw videos online. They want to interview us. Carlos stood up. Tell them no. Carlos, I said no. Our daughter is not a circus attraction. Emma watched her parents, her heart pounding. The idea of being on the news, of having strangers across the state hear her story, it was terrifying. But it was also an opportunity. Wait, Dad. Carlos turned. What if the story helps someone? What if someone else out there is feeling invisible and they see it and they realize they're not alone? Her father's expression softened. Emma, you don't have to do this. I know, but maybe I want to. And the reporter arrived 3 days later. Her name was Angela Chen, and she was nothing like Emma expected. Kind eyes, genuine smile, a way of asking questions that made Emma feel like she was talking to a friend rather than a journalist. Tell me about the day you met Marcus, Angela said. Emma told the story from the beginning. The heat, the broken motorcycle, the water bottle, the way everyone else had walked past. What made you stop? Emma considered the question. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to have people look through you like you're not even there. When I saw him struggling, I saw myself. I saw every time someone ignored me because I'm in a wheelchair. Angela scribbled notes. And you weren't afraid of him. Should I have been? Most people would have been. Emma shook her head. People are afraid of what they don't understand. They see the leather and the tattoos, and they make assumptions. But assumptions aren't truth. They're just shortcuts for people who don't want to look deeper. The interview continued for an hour. Angela spoke with Maria and Carlos. She photographed Emma in her purple wheelchair. She asked about the bullying, the therapy, the way life had changed since the gathering. When she finally packed up her equipment, she paused at the door. Emma, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've covered a lot of stories. But yours, she shook her head. Yours is special. I hope you know that. Thank you. No, thank you for reminding me why I got into journalism in the first place. The story aired the following week. Emma watched it with her parents, her heart hammering as her face appeared on screen. The reporter had done a beautiful job capturing the essence of what had happened without sensationalizing it. But it was the ending that made Emma cry. Angela's voice narrated over footage of the gathering. In a world that often teaches us to look away, one little girl looked closer, and because she did, hundreds of people remembered what it means to be human. The segment ended with a shot of Emma in her garden surrounded by sunflowers. Her message is simple, Angela concluded. Stop for people. See them, because you never know when your kindness might change everything. The phone started ringing before the credits finished rolling. Friends, neighbors, strangers who had somehow found their number. Everyone wanted to talk about the story. Everyone wanted to share how it had affected them, but one call stood out from the rest. Mrs. Martinez. This is Dr. Rebecca Thompson. I'm a pediatric specialist at Phoenix Children's Hospital. I saw the news segment about your daughter. Maria gripped the phone tighter. Yes, I'd like to offer Emma a full evaluation at no cost. We have programs specifically designed for children with spina bifida, and I believe we could significantly improve her quality of life. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Your daughter inspired a lot of people tonight. Let us do something in return. The calls kept coming. A physical therapy center offered free sessions. A medical equipment company offered to maintain Emma's wheelchair at no charge. A foundation that helped families with disabled children reached out with additional resources. One story, one moment of kindness, and suddenly doors that had been locked for Emma's entire life were swinging open. How is this happening? Carlos asked, staring at the list of offers that had accumulated over 3 days. How is any of this possible? Emma looked at her father and smiled. Remember what Marcus said, kindness ripples. It doesn't stop at one person. It keeps going. But this is unreal. It's not unreal, Dad. It's just rare. Most people don't see it because they're not looking. Carlos pulled his daughter into a hug. When did you become so wise, mija? I had good teachers. Marcus called that weekend. Kid, you're famous. Emma laughed. I'm not famous. I just told the truth. Well, your truth is spreading. I've got brothers calling from all over the country. They saw the story. They want to know how they can help. Help with what? Whatever comes next. You started something, Emma. Something bigger than any of us expected. Emma was quiet for a moment. Marcus, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever regret it? Stopping that day when your bike broke down? The question seemed to catch him off guard. Regret it, Emma, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Really? Before I met you, I'd stopped believing in people. I thought the world was just hard, cruel, full of strangers who didn't give a damn about each other. His voice roughened. But you proved me wrong. A little girl in a wheelchair proved me wrong. And now look at what's happening. Look at all the people who are remembering what kindness means. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. I'm glad your bike broke down. Marcus laughed a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep. Yeah, kid. Me too. The following month brought changes Emma couldn't have imagined. Her evaluation at Phoenix Children's Hospital revealed treatment options her family had never known about. Dr. Thompson developed a comprehensive care plan that would strengthen Emma's muscles, reduce her pain, and improve her mobility over time. She's a fighter, Dr. Thompson told Maria and Carlos. I've rarely seen a child with such determination. With the right support, there's no limit to what she can achieve. At school, Emma became something unexpected, a leader. She started eating lunch with different groups, breaking down barriers she hadn't even known existed. She tutored younger kids who struggled with reading. She organized a kindness campaign that spread through the elementary school like wildfire. What do we do when we see someone struggling? She asked a group of first graders during one of her talks. We stop, they shouted in unison. And what do we do when someone looks different from us? We look closer. Emma smiled. These children might not remember every word she said, but they would remember the feeling. The idea that kindness was a choice they could make every single day. Her sunflowers grew taller that summer than they ever had before. Emma tended them every evening, talking to them about her day, her hopes, her dreams. They listened the way they always had, silent, steady, forever facing the sun. You know what I figured out, she told them one night. Being kind isn't about being perfect. It's about trying. It's about stopping, even when you're tired, even when nobody's watching, even when the person you're helping can't say thank you. She touched the nearest bloom. You guys taught me that. You don't care if anyone appreciates you. You just grow. You just face the light. Her mother's voice called from the house. Emma, phone for you. She wheeled back inside and took the phone. Hello? Emma Martinez. Yes? My name is Robert Chen. I'm Angela's husband, the reporter who did the story on you. Oh. Hi, Mr. Chen. I'm also on the board of the Arizona Children's Foundation. We've been following your story, and we'd like to make you an offer. Emma's heart beat faster. What kind of offer? We're launching a new initiative, a program to help children with disabilities feel seen and supported. We want to call it the Sunflower Project. He paused. And we want you to be our ambassador. Emma couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. We'd provide resources to schools across the state. We'd train teachers and counselors to identify children who are struggling. And you would be the face of it all, the voice that reminds people why stopping matters. I'm 8 years old, Emma finally managed. Yes, and that's exactly why we want you. Because if an 8-year-old can change this many lives, imagine what could happen if we give her a platform. Emma looked at her mother, who was watching with wide eyes. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. She hung up the phone and sat in silence. The Sunflower Project. A chance to help children like her children, who felt invisible children, who struggled in silence, children who needed someone to stop. It was everything she'd ever wanted. And it was terrifying. Mom, she said quietly, I think something big is happening. And Maria knelt beside her daughter's wheelchair. Tell me. Emma told her about the offer, about the foundation, about the chance to become something more than just a girl who had helped a stranger. When she finished, Maria took her hands. Emma, whatever you decide, your father and I will support you. But I want you to know something. What? You don't have to save the world. You don't have to be an ambassador or a spokesperson or anything you don't want to be. You already did something amazing, that's enough. Emma nodded. I know, Mom. But what if it's not about saving the world? What if it's just about helping one more person, and then one more, and then one more after that? Maria's eyes filled with tears. When did you grow up so fast? I had help. Emma squeezed her mother's hands. From you, from Dad, from Marcus and his brothers, from a bunch of strangers who stopped for me when I needed them. She looked toward the window, toward the garden, where her sunflowers stood tall against the fading light. I want to do this, Mom. I want to be the person who stops. I want to help other kids feel seen. Maria pulled her into a hug. Then that's what you'll do. Emma closed her eyes, feeling her mother's arms around her, feeling the weight of the decision settling into her bones. She didn't know what would come next. She didn't know how many people she would reach or how many lives she would touch, but she knew one thing for certain. She would never stop stopping. 6 months had passed since Emma Martinez handed a bottle of water to a stranger. 6 months since the gathering that shook her neighborhood. 6 months since the world discovered what one small act of kindness could become. And now she stood at a podium in Phoenix, facing 500 people who had come to witness the official launch of the Sunflower Project. Emma, you ready? She looked up at Robert Chen, who stood beside her with an encouraging smile. No, she admitted. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. The auditorium buzzed with conversation. Teachers, counselors, parents, journalists, all waiting to hear from the 8-year-old girl who had become the unlikely face of a movement. Emma's parents sat in the front row. Her mother clutched her father's hand, both of them radiating pride and terror in equal measure. And in the back of the room, standing against the wall in a row of leather vests, were Marcus and his brothers. Emma caught his eye. He gave her a single nod. She took a breath and rolled her purple wheelchair to the microphone. Hi, my name is Emma Martinez. I'm 8 years old, and 6 months ago I gave a stranger a bottle of water. A silence fell over the auditorium. That's it. That's the whole story. I saw someone who needed help, and I stopped. I didn't do it because I wanted to be famous. I didn't do it because I thought something good would happen to me. I did it because it was the right thing to do. She paused, letting the words settle. But here's what I learned. When you stop for someone, really stop, really see them, something changes. Not just for them, for you. And sometimes for a lot of other people too. Emma looked out at the crowd, at the faces watching her, hanging on every word. I know what it feels like to be invisible, I've spent most of my life being looked through, looked past, looked over. People see my wheelchair before they see me. They make assumptions about what I can and can't do before they even ask my name. Her voice strengthened. But I also know what it feels like to be seen. To have someone stop and really look at you. To have someone treat you like you matter. She gestured toward the back of the room. Those men in the leather vests. The world told me to be afraid of them. But they're the ones who showed up when no one else did. They're the ones who reminded me that I wasn't alone. Maria was crying now. Carlos had his arm around her, his own eyes wet. The Sunflower Project isn't about me, Emma continued. It's about every kid who feels invisible. Every kid who eats lunch alone. Every kid who wonders if anyone would notice if they disappeared. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. We're going to find those kids. We're going to see them. And we're going to remind them that they matter. She looked directly at Marcus. Because that's what kindness does. It sees people. And sometimes seeing is enough. The applause started slowly, then built into a wave that crashed over the auditorium. 500 people rose to their feet, their hands coming together in a thunder that rivaled any motorcycle engine. Emma sat in her purple wheelchair, tears streaming down her face, and smiled. The reception afterward was overwhelming. People lined up to meet her, to shake her hand, to tell her how her story had affected them. Teachers shared stories of students they'd overlooked. Parents confessed that they'd been too busy to really see their own children. Strangers admitted that they'd walked past people in need without stopping. You made me think, one woman said, her voice thick with emotion. You made me look at myself and ask hard questions. That's all I wanted, Emma replied, just to make people think. Marcus found her near the refreshment table, looking exhausted but radiant. Hell of a speech, kid. Thanks. I was terrified. Didn't show. He crouched beside her chair. I'm proud of you, Emma. We all are. You came all this way just to watch me talk. We came all this way because you're family now, and family shows up. Emma's throat tightened. Marcus, I don't know how to thank you. For everything. You already did. 6 months ago on a road nobody else stopped on. He stood, his leather vest creaking. Just keep doing what you're doing, kid. Keep stopping for people. That's all the thanks I'll ever need. The first year of the Sunflower Project exceeded every expectation. Schools across Arizona adopted the curriculum Emma had helped design, lessons about empathy, about seeing others, about the courage it takes to stop when everyone else walks by. Emma visited classrooms whenever she could, rolling her purple wheelchair to the front of the room and telling her story to children who looked at her with wide eyes and open hearts. What do we do when we see someone struggling? She would ask. We stop, they would shout. And what do we do when someone looks different? We look closer. The simple mantras spread through schools like seeds in the wind, taking root in young minds that would carry them for decades to come. But the project wasn't without challenges. Some parents complained that their children were being taught by a celebrity. Others questioned whether an 8-year-old, now 9, was qualified to speak about anything at all. Emma heard the criticism. She read the letters. She saw the skeptical faces at school board meetings, and she kept going anyway. Doesn't it bother you? Sarah asked one afternoon. They were sitting in Emma's garden, surrounded by sunflowers that had grown taller than either of them. The people who say mean things? Yeah. Emma considered the question. It used to. But then I realized something. The people who criticize aren't the ones I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to reach the kids who feel invisible. And they're not complaining. They're listening. Sarah nodded slowly. You're pretty smart for a 9-year-old. I had good teachers. Tyler Mason graduated to middle school that year. Emma saw him once at a grocery store pushing a cart for his mother. Their eyes met across the aisle. For a moment, neither moved. Then Tyler raised his hand in a small wave. Not a taunt, not a challenge, just an acknowledgement. Emma waved back. She didn't know if he'd changed. She didn't know if her words in that hallway had made any lasting difference, but she hoped she had to hope that somewhere inside him a seed had been planted. That's all any of them could do. Plant seeds, water them, wait for them to grow. The second anniversary of the gathering brought an unexpected visitor. Emma was in her garden tending her sunflowers when she heard the rumble of a motorcycle in the driveway. She wheeled around the house and found Marcus dismounting from his Harley, the same Harley that had broken down 2 years ago on Route 12. "Ghost," he grinned. "Hey kid, got a minute? For you always." They sat together on the front porch, the evening settling around them like a familiar blanket. "I've got news," Marcus said. "Good news or bad news? Depends on how you look at it." He pulled an envelope from inside his vest. "The Brotherhood voted last week. Unanimous decision." "One decision about what?" He handed her the envelope. "Open it." Emma's fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside was a photograph, a close-up of a patch embroidered with careful stitches. The patch showed a sunflower. "We're adding it to our vests," Marcus explained. "Every chapter that participated in the gathering. Every rider who came to see you that day." His voice roughened. "It's a reminder of what you taught us, of why we ride." Emma stared at the photograph, unable to speak. "You changed us, Emma. Not just me, all of us. We spent years thinking the world saw us as monsters, and then you came along and saw us as human beings." He paused. "That sunflower patch is our way of carrying you with us, everywhere we go." The tears came before Emma could stop them. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just keep being who you are." Marcus stood stretching his legs. "That's the best thanks any of us could ask for." The news spread quickly. Photographs of the sunflower patch appeared on social media, shared by riders across the country. The story, already legendary within the Brotherhood, took on new dimensions as people learned about the symbol and its meaning. "Did you hear?" Sarah burst into Emma's house one afternoon, waving her phone. "There's a whole article about the patch. It's gone viral." Emma looked at the screen, scrolling through comments from strangers who had been moved by the story. "This little girl taught grown men what it means to be kind. I'm crying at my desk right now. We need more Emmas in this world." She handed the phone back to Sarah. "It's not about me." "It kind of is, though." Emma shook her head. "It's about all of us. Every person who stops. Every person who sees. Every person who chooses kindness when it would be easier to look away." She wheeled toward her garden, Sarah following behind. "The sunflowers don't care who planted them," Emma continued. "They just grow. They just face the sun. That's what we should all do. Stop worrying about credit. Stop worrying about recognition. Just grow. Just face the light." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You're going to be president someday, aren't you?" Emma laughed. "I'm 9 years old. So you've already done more than most adults I know." The third anniversary brought another gathering, but this time it wasn't just about Emma. The Sunflower Project had identified 50 children across Arizona who needed support. Kids in wheelchairs, kids with chronic illnesses, kids who had been bullied or overlooked or forgotten. And on a sunny Saturday in May, 500 motorcycles rolled into Phoenix to celebrate them all. Emma watched from the main stage as the bikes arrived, their engines creating a symphony of thunder that shook the ground beneath her wheels. "This is incredible," her father breathed beside her. "It's what we planned," Emma said. It's what was supposed to happen. No, mija. It's what you made happen. The ceremony was unlike anything anyone had witnessed before. 50 children rolled onto the stage in wheelchairs, walked with crutches, stood with trembling legs. Each one received a custom jacket leather, like the bikers wore, with a sunflower patch over the heart. And as each child accepted their jacket, the 500 riders in the audience rose to their feet and placed their hands over their own hearts. A silent promise, a gesture of respect, a commitment to see these children, to honor them, to remind them that they were not alone. Emma delivered the closing remarks. 3 years ago, I gave a stranger a bottle of water. I didn't know it would lead to this. I didn't know that one small act could grow into something so big. Her voice carried across the crowd. But that's the thing about kindness. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for the right moment. It just happens when someone chooses to stop. She looked at the 50 children on stage beside her, their faces shining with joy and disbelief. To every kid here today, you are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. And no matter what the world tells you, no matter how many people look away, there will always be someone who stops, someone who sees, someone who cares. She turned to face the audience, the bikers, the parents, the teachers, the strangers who had become family. To everyone else, be that someone. Stop for people. Look closer, because you never know when your kindness might change everything. The applause was deafening, but louder than the applause was the rumble of 500 engines coming to life, a thunderous celebration that echoed across Phoenix and beyond. That night, Emma sat in her garden one final time. The sunflowers had been harvested weeks ago, their seeds saved for planting next spring. But the memory of them remained tall stalks reaching for the sky, golden heads forever facing the sun. "Hey guys," she whispered to the empty garden. "I know you're not here right now, but I wanted to tell you something." The evening breeze stirred the air around her. "We did it. We really did it. The project is helping kids all over the state. The bikers are wearing your symbol on their vests. And people are stopping. They're seeing each other. They're remembering what kindness means." She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the fading sun on her face. "I don't know what happens next. I don't know how big this thing will grow. But I know one thing for certain: it started with a seed. A tiny seed that everyone said would never grow." A smile crossed her face. "But you grew anyway. And so did I." Marcus called her later that evening. "Kid, I've got something to tell you." "What is it?" "The Brotherhood voted again. This time it wasn't about patches." His voice carried weight. "We're establishing a permanent fund, the Emma Martinez Foundation. Every chapter in the country is contributing. It'll provide wheelchairs, therapy, medical care, whatever kids like you need." Emma's breath caught. "Marcus? You started something, Emma. Something that's not going to stop. Not ever." He paused. "I wanted you to know that your legacy is secure. No matter what happens, no matter where life takes you, this foundation will keep helping kids. Forever." The tears came freely now. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being who you are. That's all any of us want." "I will. I promise." "Good. Because you've got a lot more stopping to do." Emma laughed through her tears. "Don't I know it?" 10 years later, Emma Martinez graduated from Arizona State University at the top of her class. She rolled across the stage in her purple wheelchair, the same one she'd received all those years ago, upgraded and modified as she grew to accept her diploma in social work. In the audience sat her parents, their hair now gray, their faces lined with age but bright with pride. Beside them sat Marcus, his beard whiter than it had been, his leather vest still bearing the sunflower patch over his heart. And behind them, filling an entire section of the stadium, sat 300 bikers who had traveled from across the country to watch their little sister graduate. When Emma's name was called, the thunder began. Not engines this time. Just hands, 300 pairs of them, clapping in unison, creating a sound that rivaled any motorcycle rally. Emma looked out at the crowd, at the family she had been born into, and the family she had chosen, and felt her heart swell with gratitude. She raised her diploma toward the bikers, and the thunder intensified. This was what kindness did. It built bridges. It created families. It turned strangers into brothers and sisters and lifelong friends. And it all started with a bottle of water. After the ceremony, Emma found Marcus in the parking lot. He was standing beside his Harley, still the same one lovingly maintained over the years, waiting for her. "Congratulations, kid." "Thanks, Ghost." He smiled at the nickname. "What's next?" "I start at the foundation next month. Full-time." Emma's eyes sparkled. "We're expanding to all 50 states. Every child who needs help, we're going to find them." I don't doubt it for a second. They stood in comfortable silence, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That day on Route 12, what would have happened if I hadn't stopped?" Marcus considered the question. "Honestly, I don't know. I was in a dark place back then. The bike breaking down felt like the universe telling me I wasn't worth saving." He paused. "But then you came along. This little girl in a wheelchair who looked at me like I mattered, and everything changed." Emma reached out and took his hand. "I'm glad your bike broke down." "Me too, kid. Me too." He climbed onto his Harley and started the engine. "You coming to the rally next month?" "Wouldn't miss it." "Good. The brothers want to hear you speak." Emma laughed. "I've been speaking for 10 years. Don't they get tired of hearing me?" Marcus shook his head. "Not even close." He pulled away, the roar of his engine fading into the distance. Emma watched him go, feeling the weight of everything they had built together. The Sunflower Project. The foundation. The thousands of children who had been helped. The millions of people who had heard the story and been inspired to stop, to see, to care. All from one bottle of water. All from one choice to stop when everyone else walked by. Emma Martinez wheeled herself toward her parents, toward the celebration waiting at home, toward the future she had fought so hard to build. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead. She didn't know how many more children she would help, how many more lives she would touch. But she knew one thing, with absolute certainty. She would never stop stopping, because that's what sunflowers do. They face the sun. They grow toward the light. And no matter how dark the world gets, they never ever give up. Emma Martinez had learned that lesson at 8 years old on a cracked sidewalk in Ridgewater, Arizona. And she would spend the rest of her life teaching it to everyone she met. Because kindness isn't complicated. It doesn't require money or power or fame. It just requires one simple choice, the choice to stop, to see, to care. And when you make that choice, everything changes. Everything.